If I want to be a freelancer, how in the world do I get in contact with someone or some way to figure out how to get work? I've sent out postcards, look for names of art directors and agents, sent out direct emails, search the internet for any jobs, tried to grow my following. I cannot get a freelancing job to save my life. And so far, just sell on Etsy. I would love to get editorial work or do backgrounds, book covers, or anything. Very frustrating. Maybe I'm just not good enough to warrant a response. Please send help. So I want to take a stab at this first. So basically, I was looking at this and I'm like, I can't answer this question without seeing the work.
Oh, but you can. See, that's where you don't see between the lines, like the pro podcaster Michael Jackson.
You'll get your chance. But in general, for anyone who's thinking about sending in a question like this that pertains to their work, send us a link so that we can look at your work and we can give you direct feedback on what we think. My skepticism is that there's a problem with the work. And that's where I immediately go. Now, I would love to be surprised and look at the work and go, wow, okay, there's something wrong here. Because I fielded this question from the famous Brett Hellquist. He and I were friends. We went to the same school. He was a year behind me at BYU in the illustration program.
Tell us why he's famous.
Well, for the series of unfortunate events books, and he's done a bunch of children's books. Bunch of children's book covers, a lot of YA covers, and just as an industry name right now, every editor, every publisher, everybody knows who Brett Hellquist is. But 1 or 2 years out of school, I had been freelancing for 3 years. He was out 1.5 years or 2 years, and we would talk from time to time on the phone. And he's like, "Will, I'm thinking about quitting. The exact same thing that I'm reading in this letter right here." And he just says, I just don't know how much longer I can do it. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? He says, I'm working for a temp agency and I'm trying to freelance at night. I'm trying to send out postcards. I'm trying to get my work out there. And he had me on his mailing list and he was sending me, every time he'd do a postcard, he'd send them to me. And I'm like, Brett, I'm getting your postcards and they're amazing. They were much better. Brett, your work is better than the stuff I'm doing, and I'm busy with freelance work. So how many people are you mailing to? And by the way, this might not answer your particular question, Beverly, because I can't see your work. This might help a little bit. But basically, he said, well, I'm mailing to 50 people on my list, and I had been mailing to 1,200. And I'm like, Brett, I'm mailing 1,200 postcards every other month and you're mailing 50 every other month. No one knows who you are. No one has seen your work. 50 people is nothing. 1,200 is nothing. If your work is good, you're going to get work. If the right people see your work, it's cause and effect. If you have great work and the right people are seeing your work, you're going to get asked to dance. Right. But almost every time I've seen this question and I look at the work and I go, well, they're either really missing really low and think that they're doing really good, or they're really in that middle ground where it's just crowded of people. And in my book, What They Don't Teach in Art School, I have a graph in there of where you need to be. I answer this question specifically with a graph. And you have got to be, your work has to be really, really high up there. And compared to the people that are getting regular work, if you're going to take work away from them. So that would be, anyway, Lee, take it away.
That's interesting. To add to what you're saying there, I used to have part of a lecture that I would give to a class of is illustration a great career for you? Well, for some people, it really is. Like the top 3%, they write their own ticket. They can do whatever they want, right? They have multiple offers.
Right.
The next little
turning down work.
Turning down a lot of work. Yeah. Those are the people that, the top end, if you have the bell-shaped curve, and then as you get into that, next tier. You got people that are getting pretty good jobs. Maybe they got to ask around, or they got to hustle a little bit. That top of the bell, those people really got to hustle because there's people all over the place. And, is illustration a great career for them? It's probably hard. Once you get to the low part of the curve, now you're running into a lot of rejection. So it's a different field for whoever is the artist involved. It really is. But good people always get work. And I want to emphasize that. That's sort of what Will is saying. They almost can. Oh, that's pretty good, Will. He's showing me the graph.
Yeah, there's
Good work will always be in need, and you won't have to look for it too hard. You got to do some stuff, but if you're that middle of the bell-shaped curve, you are going to have to do it all. And I can say that because I feel like I'm in the middle of the bell-shaped curve. Especially in the beginning, had to do it all. I was not one of the people that was fast-tracked. Like I feel like Dan Santat, I think, was fast-tracked. He's graduating school. We've talked about him on the podcast before. He goes to the SCBWI conference. He gets a book deal right out of the gate. Oh, great. So ask him, how is it to be a children's book illustrator? Well, it's probably awesome.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do anything.
Right.
But for me, it didn't come that quick. I had a couple of kind of iffy jobs in the beginning. I was getting work. So I'm not terrible, but they weren't what Dan was getting. So, maybe I'm more in the middle of the curve than he was. And hopefully I've moved up to the front of that thing because I now do have options. But I do want to go over this specific person because I agree with Will. It's probably a work problem, but just reading the question specifically and kind of looking for little clues, I see a few things in here. One thing that's like a pro is she can't get a job, but she is selling on Etsy. Okay, so that means something is resonating with somebody. That's a great thing. That means there's something working. So there's a glimmer of hope here. So what I get concerned about is the next sentence where it says, I would love to get editorial work, do backgrounds, book covers, or anything. That's a really odd statement to me for somebody who's doing a focused marketing campaign with postcards and gathering reference for who to send it to. That's like a shotgun approach. Like, hey, I can draw. Now somebody give me something to draw. No way would I have ever written that sentence out of school. It would have said, hey, I'm trying to get work in children's books. I go to the SCBWI conferences. I'm taking all the great classes from childrensbookpro.com, which comes out next week. You're doing all the things that you can do in that industry. Now what do I do? And it's exactly what Will said. We'd have to see the work at that point. But to me, you're selling on Etsy. Good thing. You're all over the place in terms of the work you're trying to get. So that really I would say would point to where
that's a really good point. And keep in mind that I know that Milton Glaser said this one time. He came and talked to us, the very famous graphic designer. And when I was going to school, he came in and he said, a great art director, he said, most art directors need 10 pieces that are of the same quality in the same genre to risk their career on choosing you. Okay. So this speaks to what Lee's saying is if your portfolio reflects all this kind of work, these different markets, then you probably don't have 10 editorial pieces that are of the same quality and really backing each other up. He went on to say a really good art director needs 3 to 5 pieces and a great art director only needs to see 1 piece. But most art directors need to see 5 or 10 pieces that are of the same quality and the same genre because they are risking their career by choosing you, especially if they've never worked for you before. Once they start working with you, they'll just keep working with you because it's easier to go with the person they know who delivers on time, who delivers the quality, and you just make their life easier. And so it really is easy. The freelance illustration gets easier and easier over time. There really is a situation of the haves and the have-nots. But you can earn your way in. That's the neat thing. It's not a birthright thing. It's it's hard to get in. Yeah, it's
like a merit-based thing.
Yeah.